What's up, YouTube? Zero here, and today I have an absolutely fantastic Mega Metagross and Skarmory deck in Pokemon TCG Pocket. In this video, I'll go over the deck build that you can see on the left-hand side of the screen. I'll talk about each of these cards individually, and I'll talk about why this deck is fantastic and you should be checking it out. Before I get into it, I do want to say if you do enjoy this video, definitely give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more Pokemon TCG Pocket content, especially if you like deck builds, whether it's meta deck builds or unique deck builds. I do both, so be on the lookout for new deck builds, especially with great cards, fantastic Pokemon, and some of your favorite Pokemon. Be on the lookout for them. Without further ado, let's talk about this deck. I absolutely love Metagross. I have been waiting for a very long time for a Metagross card in Pokemon TCG Pocket to finally release. And we actually got two. We got a non-EX Metagross, which is not in this deck. And we also got a Metagross EX, which is in this deck. This deck is centered around this card and has its support Skarmory. Now let's talk about this individual card, the Metagross EX. For 3 colorless energy, meaning you can really put it in any deck you choose, it has Gatling Slug, which deals 100 damage. However, you really want to put it in a deck with Metal Energy because the attack, Gatling Slug, does 10 more damage for each Metal Energy attached to Mega Metagross. Therefore, if it's in a metal type deck and you attach 3 metal energy, Gatling Slug is now going to be doing 130 damage, which is a fair amount for 3 energy. And of course, you can continue to attach metal energy and you can continue to deal more damage. The more energy, metal energy you have on Mega Metagross, the more damage you are going to deal, which is pretty nice. You can just keep attaching that metal energy, and Mega Metagross's attack is going to increase. Now, I do pair Mega Metagross with Skarmory. There are a lot of different decks where some decks pair him with Dialga EX or other energy ramping metal cards. I don't. I pair him with Skarmory. Now, Skarmory has always been a phenomenal card because of how hard it can hit insanely quickly. Let's talk about it. For just 1 metal energy, is Metal Arms, deals 20 damage. However, if you have a Pokemon tool attached to Skarmory, it's going to deal 30 more damage. That means for just 1 energy and a Pokemon tool, you're hitting for 50 damage. So you're hitting for a lot of chip damage while you're attaching metal energy to Mega Metagross on the bench. Now, yes, this isn't ramping energy onto Mega Metagross. However, it's going to allow you to hit pretty hard really quickly. Skarmory's hitting for 50 for just 1 energy. Meanwhile, you're building up your energy onto Mega Metagross on the bench. Now, I do pair this deck, and we're going to jump to one of those supporter cards that just released as well, Wally. I have Wally in this deck as well. There's a reason why I have Wally in this deck as well. You can take a colorless energy from your energy zone and attach it to one of your Stage 2 Pokemon. So Skarmory is going to be hitting for 50. It's going to be dealing for a decent amount of chip damage. It's going to be chipping away at whatever Pokemon is in that active slot. Could be a Mega Pokemon, such as a Mega Sableye or a Mega Absol, that only has 170 HP. Now think about it for a second. You just hit that Mega Absol for 50. That means that Mega Absol is down to 120 HP. Well, once you get 1 energy onto your Mega Metagross after your Skarmory hit for that 50, well, now you can equip the metal energy from the energy zone. You can utilize Wally, which takes 1 colorless energy from your energy zone and attaches it to one of your Stage 2 Pokemon. In this case is your Mega Metagross. and you're now hitting for 120 damage. You just KO'd that Mega Absol or that Mega Sableye. Yes, this isn't going to work in every scenario, but it does have those certain scenarios where 120 is going to get the trick done. It's going to finish off your opponent because your Skarmory can hit so hard. Hitting for 120 also isn't bad because 2 turns of hitting for 120 is now 240, and that's going to 2-hit KO a lot of Pokemon in the game. Not every, there's only a couple that can avoid that, and of course there are also cards that can heal up, but you're hitting for a significant amount in 2 turns, and you can do it really quickly. You only need 1 energy, and then the next turn, you can equip the energy from the energy zone and utilize Wally to get that colorless energy from the energy zone and just start attacking with your Mega Metagross. A lot of players with Mega Metagross are focused on ramping the energy, utilizing Dialga or another Pokemon to just ramp the metal energy onto their Mega Metagross. And yes, that can work in certain circumstances, and it's fun to see your Mega Metagross hit for 200 or 220 damage. However, you're almost sacrificing your Dialga, which leaves you open to certain plays. You're sacrificing your Dialga, which is already 2 points once it gets KO'd. And then if you have other Pokemon in your deck, you leave yourself open to potentially a Sabrina or a Cyrus if your opponent has a Pokemon that hits the bench. So you leave yourself open to that type of play. In this deck, I'm just trying to chip with Skarmory as much as I can, get Mega Metagross its 3 energy regardless of how I do it, and then just start hitting. I don't need 200 damage. I don't need 250 damage. I want to just start hitting as quickly as possible. Let me hit my opponents as quickly as I can, because you can see the Entei I'm facing has 1 energy on it. Now, if my opponent has no way of getting a second energy on it really quickly, of course, my opponent does have Flame Patch, but I can, on my next turn, equip an energy from the energy zone, let my Skarmory die, and then the next turn, I equip an energy from the energy zone. If I get a Wally, I equip Wally, and now I'm now hitting for 120 damage, which isn't bad at all, especially with the chip damage that Skarmory's doing. So it's plays like that that really allow Mega Metagross to succeed in this combination with Skarmory and Wally. Now, I do have, of course, you need a couple of these other cards in the deck. Beldum evolves into Mega Metagross, and for those of you who don't know, Beldum is actually really cool. It has the ability Conductive Body, so if both Beldums are in play, the retreat cost is 2 less, so you do get a free retreat as long as both Beldums are on the field of play. It also has an attack ram for 10 damage, nothing too exciting to write home about. Couple of Pokeballs, couple of Professor's Research, those don't need no introduction. Next, let's talk about Lucky Egg. Lucky Egg is phenomenal because Lucky Egg, if it's equipped on your Skarmory is taken out, is going to allow you to draw cards from your deck. If the Pokemon this card is attached to is knocked out by damage from an attack from your opponent's Pokemon, draw cards until you have 5 cards in your hand. So as long as this card, Lucky Egg, is on your Skarmory, you already know you're going to sacrifice your Skarmory. It's going to be hitting for that chip damage, that 50 damage over and over again. Lucky Egg is going to power your Skarmory up to 50. Once your opponent hits an attack on your Skarmory and kills it, you're going to draw cards from your deck until you have 5 in your hand, which is nice. It enhances the card draw a little bit more, and you can get your Mega Metagross onto the field if you haven't already. Of course, it does give you the opportunity to get a couple of other cards in your hand, such as Wally, if you need Wally to equip the colorless energy, or other cards that you may need. Maybe a rare candy is needed to evolve into Mega Metagross. Maybe you just want a Sabrina and a Cyrus in your hand for that play later in the game to move a Pokemon out of that active slot to the bench and get to one of your opponent's benched Pokemon. I also have Steel Apron in this deck. Steel Apron is really nice because the metal Pokemon Steel Apron is attached to take minus 10 damage from attacks, You also recover from all special conditions, and you can't be affected by special conditions. So this Pokemon tool is really going to prevent a lot of decks from implementing their full strategy. You're going to be immune to the sleep decks. They've gone away a little bit. I haven't seen as many Igglybuff Darkrai sleep decks, but you're still immune to them. Players are still utilizing Mega Blaziken that burns, Mega Sceptile that poisons. You're going to be immune to all of this, so I absolutely love Steel Apron in this deck because you're going to be immune to that chip damage from those different special conditions that your opponent could potentially inflict you with. So I absolutely love that as a part of this deck, especially to keep those special conditions off of our Pokemon. And then last but not least, of course, I mentioned Rare Candy, and I mentioned Sabrina and Cyrus, but I do have those in this deck. They're always going to be important. Skarmory's chipping, it's hitting for 50, so there's a potential that whatever Pokemon you're hitting, your opponent tries to retreat to the bench. Cyrus is going to take them from the bench to the active spot, and Sabrina, of course, is great to get a Pokemon out of that active slot, maybe get to a Pokemon on the bench that you really want. You saw earlier that I was able to KO a Pokemon that had only 50 HP. Things like that are pretty important, so you can force a Pokemon to the active slot that your opponent may not want to be there and hit them for 50, potentially KOing them or dealing a significant amount of damage to them. I absolutely love this deck. I love Metagross in general. You can see my favorite 6 Pokemon in the Gaming with Zero tag that I have on the screen. Metagross is one of them. I'm absolutely ecstatic that Metagross came out, and there are definitely a lot of different ways that you can play Metagross. Of course, if for whatever reason you want to put it in a different deck, you only want to deal 100 damage, maybe you want to pair it with some baby Pokemon, I mean, you have the potential to do that as well. Instead of utilizing Wally, you could potentially still put it in a metal type deck, but have a bunch of different baby type Pokemon just to ramp the energy on Mega Metagross so it can attack a little bit quicker. You have a baby Pokemon, you equip an energy on it, you take an energy from the energy zone, and then maybe a Wally, and you could be attacking on potentially turn 2, depending upon the luck of the draw and the Pokemon you get. But there are a lot of different options for this card. Of course, like I said, the typical play from a lot of players is putting Mega Metagross with potentially Dialga or other ramping agents in terms of the ramp on the metal energy, but I chose against that in this deck just because Skarmory can really hit for a lot of damage really quickly and can really put your opponent on the back heel just because hitting for 50 is very significant. 50 over and over again can deal a significant amount of damage to your opponent's Pokemon. After only 3 turns, you've hit for 150 damage. There are a lot of Pokemon that your opponent is trying to put in that active slot that probably has less than 150 HP. Suicune EX is still very prominent that you can see on the screen that a lot of players put in that active spot. Entei EX that we saw earlier is another one that has less than 150 HP that you can hit for significant damage. There are a lot of Pokemon that Skarmory is just really going to start wrecking as soon as it's able to equip that energy and start hitting for that 50 damage, which is awesome because it's going to buy you enough time and enough damage to get your Mega Metagross into that active slot. You don't need a ton of damage, like I said, before Mega Metagross combined with Skarmory can really wreck your opponent's team. I absolutely love this combination. It's a really fun combination. I recommend checking it out. Let me know what you think of this deck in the comments section. What do you think of Mega Metagross in general? Is it a card that you like? Is it a card that you've been using? Have you been utilizing it with Dialga? What are the other Pokemon you've been utilizing it with to really make it pop and shine in the metagame? I know I've seen a bunch of recent tournaments, and Mega Metagross really hasn't been utilized a ton, which is a shame. As I mentioned, Mega Metagross is, or Metagross in general, is one of my favorite Pokemon, so it is a shame that it hasn't been utilized more. But I'm sure as time goes on, people will find a way to utilize this Pokemon because it's just so versatile. 3 colorless energy can really go in any deck. Of course, like I said, you do need in some way, shape, or form that metal type energy to really explore the full potential of Mega Metagross. But there are a lot of different ways to utilize it, and I'm going to explore a lot of those different ways and a lot of those deck combinations. If there's a Pokemon you want a deck centered around, let me know in the comment section and I will get it done. Doesn't matter the Pokemon, I love exploring unique decks. I have a bunch of different unique decks on my channel, so make sure you check those out. I'm really looking forward to exploring Mega Metagross in different type of decks. I may put Mega Metagross with some other decks, like I mentioned earlier, some of those baby Pokemon type decks, just to see how it works out. Maybe put baby Pokemon in the deck along with the Metal Energy, just to have Mega Metagross attacking as quickly as possible and giving it an opportunity. Just get into that active spot as quickly as possible, killing my opponents quicker than they can implement their strategies. That's always a good strategy, is being quicker than your opponents. That's really what the name of the game is. How quick can you be? Can you be quicker than your opponents, or can you slow your opponent down to the point where you're implementing your strategy before your opponent can? Both are great strategies. It's either be quicker than your opponent or just slow your opponent down. So essentially you are quicker than them, but that's the name of the game. Let me know in the comments section what you think of this deck. I hope you enjoyed this video. Definitely hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel for more Pokemon TCG Pocket content. And until next time, peace.